However, Israeli firsters were unable to get their war until they could create the myth of Saddam's men meeting with Al-Qaeda, using moles in the media to repeat the garbage of their own publications. Which is exactly what they did. Not only that, but they compounded on that lie by adding that at this meeting they also got anthrax from the Iraqis, and they blamed that on Al-Qaeda as well, all of which turned out to be lies. Of course, the Prince of Darkness was a message force multiplier. December 28, 2001, in an op-ed in the New York Times, Richard Pearl wrote, "We must strike Iraq. Evidence of a meeting in Prague between a senior Iraqi intelligence agent and Mohammed Atta, the September 11th ringleader, is convincing." Another PNAC troll, Paul Wolfowitz, added, "Like the meeting of Mohammed Atta with Iraqi officials in Prague, I think the premise of a policy has to be we can't afford to wait for proof beyond a reasonable doubt." February 23, 2002, in the San Francisco Chronicle. Pearl was the chairman of the Defense Policy Board in the DoD and involved in too many other criminal activities to get into. Paul Wolfowitz was the Deputy Secretary of Defense and later the head of the World Bank, and also involved in too many crimes to get into. The London Times reports October 27th, not only did Iraqis meet with Al-Qaeda's Mohammed Atta in Prague, they were also seen giving him a vial of anthrax. Israeli security forces observed the transfer. The author of the London Times piece later had a mysterious death. Mass media quickly seized on an Iraqi anthrax connection as well as an Al-Qaeda connection. It is also easy to see how this complements Judith Miller's stories of biolabs and Cheney's stories about a meeting in Prague, both 100% false. With this lie, they connected 9/11 to Iraq. Yet there was no meeting in Prague. There were no Iraqis passing anthrax to hijackers. There were no Iraqis even talking to hijackers. These monstrous lies were told by embedded Zionist journalists who worked with the administration's PNAC members. For example, the lie that the lead hijacker of 9/11, Mohammed Atta, met with agents of Saddam was repeated by William Safire of the New York Times, May 9, 2002, which came from PNAC's Gary Schmidt, who wrote it in 2001 for the Weekly Standard, an outfit run by PNAC's co-founders Crystal and Kagan. The story was leaked to Rutgers September 18, 2001, just a week after 9/11, and the same day as the first anthrax mailing. Wow! They knew about the lead hijacker as well as a meeting that never took place within 7 days. They probably wanted to follow up on this sooner than they did, adding the anthrax part of the lie, assuming the first letter would be opened in just a couple of days, but the mail didn't work like that. This Atta met with Iraqi intelligence lie was repeated by Vice President Dick Cheney December 9, 2001 on national television. He later denied it in spite of being on tape saying it.
You have said in the past that it was, quote, pretty well confirmed.
No, I never said that.
Okay.
I never
think
said
that is...
No, it's absolutely not. What I said was, it's been pretty well confirmed that he did go to Prague and he did meet with a senior official of the Iraqi intelligence service in Czechoslovakia last April.
We've never made the case or argued the case that somehow Osama bin Laden was directly involved in 9/11. That evidence has never been forthcoming.
Look at just some of the lies coming from a couple of PNAC goons, Gary Schmidt and William Crystal. Both wrote pieces called Iraq Al-Qaeda Connection, trying to link Iraq to Al-Qaeda. Gary Schmidt referred to Fred Barnes from the Weekly Standard, saying that the Czechs had given him a photograph of Atta meeting in Prague with Iraqi officials. They kept repeating this line again about the Prague meeting between Mohammed Atta and Iraqis. Fred Barnes wrote a piece called Mohammed Atta Was Here, in which he accused the meeting of happening and having photographic evidence for it, as well as alluding that the Iraqis may have passed biological, chemical, or even nuclear weapons to Al-Qaeda. Of course, no such photo existed, because Atta was never there, and the Iraqis had no biological or chemical weapons to give. Gary Schmidt of PNAC wrote, shortly before getting on a plane to fly to New Jersey from Europe in June 2000, Mohammed Atta, the lead hijacker of the first jet airliner to slam into the World Trade Center, and apparently the lead conspirator in the attacks of September 11th, met with a senior Iraqi intelligence official. This was no chance encounter. Rather than take a flight from Germany, where he had been living, Atta traveled to Prague, almost certainly for the purpose of meeting there with Iraqi intelligence operatives Ahmad Samir Ahani. This was a complete lie designed to connect Al-Qaeda to Iraq and thus Iraq to the 9/11 attacks. It was false. Yet all the corporate news networks repeated it anyway because it had been in the New York Times. This lie came from Judith Miller, who wrote about it in the New York Times. Judith Miller, the girlfriend of the lawyer for the Mossad, Louis Libby. She made up the lie about Iraq's aluminum tubes allegedly being used as centrifuges in a nuclear reactor. December 20th, 2001. She said that she heard about secret weapons of mass destruction labs hidden underneath the palaces of Saddam. She bolsters her report by citing first Paul Wolfowitz and then Richard Pearl, and she even went as far as trying to rope in Syria to the weapons of mass destruction myth by sourcing Israeli intelligence. You know how that happens? That's because the OSP and the DoD with Pearl is actually a mirror group for the Israeli cabal and the Knesset. They're all saying the same BS, and she is just a media whore mouthpiece for this neocon propaganda about Iraq. Never mind the fact that that wouldn't physically work anyway if it was true. To recap, she retold an older PNAC lie and then added that Syria was involved in it and quoted Wolfowitz, Pearl, and Israel. Here's a woman who claimed that Iraq was using mobile weapons labs to hide their biological weapons of mass destruction and was capable of producing anthrax. Remember, Miller was also a journalist who got a hoax letter of anthrax. It's interesting because the postmark on these letters, which had identical notes as the real anthrax letters, were sent before there was reporting about them, as they had not been received yet. So why would warmongering Judith Miller and Fox News be sent pretend attacks, and yet real anthrax was sent to others who opposed the Patriot Act and the war? Judith Miller, despite having gone to jail for 85 days for some of her lies, gets hired by Fox News. Paul Wolfowitz, the idiot who said that Iraq's oil revenue would pay for the cost of the war within 2 years, gets rewarded for that economic blunder by being appointed head of the World Bank. Later, neocons involved in the American-Turkish Council and the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee were fingered in illegal black market weapons trades, including nuclear material. AIPAC was also caught spying on the United States, again. One of its moles, Larry Franklin, who was sentenced to 12 years in jail, was involved with the Niger forgeries, a bit of nuclear weapons propaganda, which fit nicely with Judith Miller's tubes myth. If you don't know already, if you've been living in a cave or getting all your news from TV, these forgers were so bad that they didn't even fake the right name on the document and ignorantly used the name of an obsolete foreign minister who had not been in power for over a decade. It would be the equivalent of trying to pass off a modern document today and signing it Ronald Reagan. This bogus information was used anyway, despite being debunked immediately, even by our own CIA. They knew it wasn't true. The CIA is evil, but they're not stupid. But it didn't matter, and they knew it wasn't going to matter. The press never took the 20 seconds or so that I just did to explain this. All in one, you see the imperialists' intentional deception and sloppiness with the media's yes-man partnership. They can't claim incompetence when they're the ones faking the documents, and the media can't claim ignorance when they will not report on the matter even after the fact. They lie to you together. The mass media is just a pro-war PR machine for